Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to another interview for the Art of Sherlock Holmes. And today it's an author interview with Tom Turley. So, Tom, tell us where you are.
Well, I'm in Montgomery, Alabama, Steve, which is not too far from West Palm Beach. We're about 6 hours behind London in terms of time, so it's a nice morning here. It looks like we're going to have an early spring. So,
It's a fantastic day today as well. Very sunny in London. As ever, I have my West Palm Beach t-shirt on. I think it's turning into a lucky t-shirt for me in terms of the weather. So tell us a little bit about how you first got into Sherlock Holmes, Tom.
All right. I guess my first exposure to Sherlock Holmes was when my mother gave me a volume of Sherlock Holmes stories when I was probably 11 or 12. And the minute I read Hound of the Baskervilles, I was pretty much hooked on Sherlock Holmes. After that, really, I didn't get too much into pastiches. I think I read The Exploits of Sherlock Holmes and the Nicholas Meyer novels, but really didn't start thinking too much about pastiches until I had an idea for one myself. And that became the first book of mine that you published as Sherlock Holmes and the Adventure of the Tainted Canister. Actually, after writing that story, I eventually sent it to Chris Redman, who used to run Sherlockian.net, and he eventually read it, and he's the one that suggested MX Publishing to me. And so this was right about the time the first volume of the anthology was coming out, and so I sent it to David, but after reading it, David reminded me that Dr. Watson at the end of the story does something that is very uncanonical. And so he didn't really feel like it was suitable for the anthology, but he invited me to write another story, which I did. And that was A Scandal in Serbia, which appeared in volume 6 of the anthology. And then the story that will be published in the Art of Sherlock Holmes is A Ghost from Christmas Past, and that appears in volume 7.
Fantastic. So, let's go back to the MX book of New Sherlock Holmes stories. And as you said, you've actually appeared in 2 volumes, volume 6 and volume 7. And as you said, David is very strict on the criteria for stories to be included in the MX anthology, because they have to be traditional pastiches. They have to be set in the correct time period. Holmes and Watson, ideally deductive reasoning, and a good mystery in there. So he's quite strict with the criteria, and it's been, I think, a key to the fact that the reviews for the series have been so strong. So from the last, I think, 7 volumes have been submitted to Publishers Weekly, and every single one of them has had a starred review. And a lot of that comes down to, I think, David's stewardship in terms of the editing. He's very tough.
Oh, I agree with that completely. And I wasn't at all offended when my first story wasn't accepted, because it does, although I'd always thought of it as a traditional story, it does stray pretty far from the canon in one respect, and David was very nice in explaining that, and we've developed quite a friendship since then. I admire not only his editorial work, but his own writing, and it really allowed me to get into the whole business of writing pastiches, and I've greatly enjoyed it and gone on from there. And in fact, I'm preparing another story for one of the future volumes of the anthology that's going to come out next year. So.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, the future anthologies, there are already 12 volumes, so by far it's the largest Sherlock Holmes collection of new stories, new traditional stories in the world, with well over 300 stories. It raises funds through the donation of the royalties to the author royalties to Stepping Stone School, which of course is based at Undershaw, where Sir Arthur Conan Doyle wrote Hound of the Baskervilles, and where he brought Sherlock Holmes back to life. We actually have 3 more volumes of the anthology coming out in May. Originally it was going to be 2, but we now have a staggering 65 stories to launch in May. So it's going to be 3 volumes. So we'll have a
It just seems to get bigger every time, doesn't it?
It does,
really,
and I think
response has been remarkable.
yes, I think there's a combination really of the fact that David set such a high bar for it. The reviews have been very good. We use Kickstarter as our primary acquisition tool in terms of raising the money to be able to do every edition, because the production of such a big volume with so many contributors is quite a big task. So we use Kickstarter, and that's been very successful for us. I think the other thing is that we now have well over 100 authors participating in it as well. So it's and there's been some very big names too. So Jonathan Kellerman, Bonnie McBird, Lee Child of the Jack Reacher movies and novels fame. So many people have participated in it, and I think a lot of that's also down to the fact that Sir Arthur is seen as the father of all modern crime fiction. So a lot of people want to participate in that. Now, talking about your next and personal collection, you've got the first 2 stories kind of ready for that.
That's right. I really have sort of a historical interest, and some of my stories have dealt with actual historical figures, some of whom you see on the cover there. The Dying Emperor is about Frederick III, and the couple next to him there, the King and Queen of Serbia, are actually the 2 figures in my story, A Scandal in Serbia, which was the first, it appeared in volume 6 of the anthology. There are going to be 2 more, and eventually I hope to publish this not only in ebook form as it is now, but as a bound volume when all 4 stories are completed. And you know, that seems to be sort of a flexible deadline at this point, but I am hoping to finish it sometime in the next year or so. So meanwhile, as I say, I'm writing another ghost story for one of the future anthology volumes. So there's a whole series of ideas, you know, that I'm thinking about here, and we'll just see how long I can keep it going.
No, that's fantastic. And moving on to the Art of Sherlock Holmes, which is what we're mainly here to talk about today. So you mentioned that a Ghost from Christmas Past, which first appeared in the MX Book of New Sherlock Holmes Stories. So tell us a little bit about this story.
Well, actually, this story brings in, I think, what some people might consider a somewhat non-canonical element, and that some of it comes from Baring Gould, Holmes' biographer. And it really tells the story of Dr. Watson's first marriage. There are references in the canon that chronologically, at least, couldn't have referred to Mary Morstan as Dr. Watson's wife. And Baring Gould had Watson meeting a young woman in America when he was in San Francisco in the middle 80s. And I tell the story of their marriage. It also ties in with one of the canonical stories, the 5 Orange Pips, and there is a background in sort of Southern American history as well. So, but it ends up as a ghost story. Of course, under David's guidelines, it has to be a ghost story that really may not be a ghost story, but there can still be a little ambiguity as to whether or not the ghost was real. I really enjoyed writing this. I honestly think it's probably the best thing I've written, and I'm certainly looking forward to seeing what the artist is going to make of it, you know, when it's tied with a piece of art for the volume you're working on now. I've just caught the tiniest glimpse of the picture that you've allowed people to see, you know, online, and I'm really looking forward to seeing it when it comes out in the book.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. So for a lot of the authors, this is a truly unique experience for an artist to spend several weeks creating a beautiful piece of art. That must be a really special feeling, Tom.
Well, it certainly is. I mean, it's an honor, really, you know, to have one of your stories tied to a work of art. And this was certainly an interesting concept that you and Phil have come up with here. I mean, I thought, of course, of having stories illustrated, but really to have a separate piece of art, you know, associated with the story is really going to be interesting, and I'm certainly looking forward to seeing it.
You mentioned Phil there. I have to give him all the credit for conceiving this idea. This is all Phil. I'm just the guy. I'm just the guy putting it together. So Phil, as you know, is an accomplished Sherlock Holmes pastiche novelist in his own right. He's had a couple of novels published with us. Both of them have been translated into Italian and launched as part of the Mondadori Giallo series, the Yellow series, and also translated into Russian, which is very interesting. So a Russian edition of his books too. And Phil just came up with this idea. So Phil's an ex-New Yorker, relocated to West Palm Beach and got very much involved in the art scene down there. We did a full interview with Phil actually for this, for the Art of Sherlock Holmes. So you can check that out on our YouTube channel and find out all about Phil. You're in Alabama, you're not too far away from West Palm Beach. I hope that you can make your way across to West Palm somewhere between the 9th and the 25th of May, because we're bringing all the art together. So the art will be exhibited at the Ann Norton Sculpture Gardens, which is a high-end gallery in West Palm Beach, and it will be sold. So, and I think it will all go. We will be cutting live to the gallery on the 25th of May from a major event that we're holding at Stepping Stone School, which is based at Undershaw, where Sir Arthur Conan Doyle wrote The Hand of the Baskervilles. So we'll be showing the fans all the art, and we'll be showing everybody the artists and doing some artist interviews and things like that as well. But the book is available already for pre-order up there on Amazon and Barnes & Noble and all good bookstores there. So hopefully you can make it across, Tom.
Okay, well, I'll look forward to it. And thank you, Steve.
Absolutely. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. And I look forward to seeing some more stories for the collection of 4 and also for the future anthologies as well, Tom.
All right, I'll try to keep them coming. Thanks a lot.